Greetings to all of you. I want to talk about the upcoming full moon on July 3rd. Remember, the full moon is bringing to fruition what was seeded at the time of the new moon. That's why the new moon is such a good time to set your intentions for what you want to grow, what you want to manifest across that month in the lunar cycle. This new moon on June 17th or 18th, depending on where you are on the globe, as you recall, was located in the sky at the upraised arm of Orion. This is a very important place in the sky in that it symbolizes order arising out of chaos, moving into new forms, rebirth, resurrection, new ways of being. So I talked a lot in that video about the new moon, about how what was being seeded was our capacity to begin to dream the new earth, begin to see the paradigms that we're moving into as we're transitioning into the Aquarian age. So now, as we're moving into the full moon, it's supporting us in beginning to understand how to put these new forms into our lives, into a way we're manifesting them in the world. Let me show you the chart of this full moon. So the full moon will take place with the sun at 11 degrees of Cancer, the moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn. This polarity is about how do we honor our feelings, Cancer, our compassion, and bring those into form, Capricorn, in the systems and structures of our society and the way that we're manifesting in our day-to-day lives. It's significant that Chiron is squaring the sun and moon at the time of this full moon. We're continually being guided through this transition time to do the healing that we need to do, to clear the wounds of the past so that we are able to expand our consciousness and move into new paradigms, new forms. As I talked about in the new moon video, we're in this ongoing square with Pluto and Arizona, showing us how to move in new directions, how to deconstruct the paradigms of the past and move into new ways of being. I think it's very significant at the time of this full moon that Venus and Mars will be conjunct. They actually went into a conjunction with a 5-degree orb June 18th and will continue to be within a 5-degree orb until July 16th. I think it is significant that Venus and Mars are coming together in Leo, guiding us in how to integrate the sacred masculine energies within us with the sacred feminine. I think there is a strong theme in this full moon about healing in relationship and healing the polarities of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine to bring them into unity, bring them into balance, which is one of the core themes of the age of Aquarius that we're moving into. That theme of relationship is strong at the time of this full moon, with Juno conjunct the sun and Black Moon Lilith in a conjunction with Venus and Mars. We're being supported to look at how are we in our significant committed relationships, Juno? How are we in relationships with each other, Venus, in a way that is about reconnecting with the energy of the sacred feminine, Black Moon Lilith, and being in true mutuality, being in right balance, right relationship with each other. And this conjunction of Venus and Mars is also an aspect to Chiron, trining Chiron, and also in a square with Uranus. How are we being supported to get clarity, to cut through illusion, to see what we need to release in terms of out of balance patterns from the past in order to integrate that way in which we're honoring the sacred feminine and sacred masculine within us, and in how we are building these new structures in society and coming into more balance with each other. I've talked a lot about how the Pluto in the final degrees of Capricorn is the deconstruction of the out of balance paradigms of patriarchal culture. That paradigm of power over, competition, the idealization of power, control, greed, wealth. When we're caught up in that patriarchal paradigm, power and wealth become more important than life, than being in right relationship with each other. It leads to a devaluation of our connection with the natural world, but also a devaluation of our relationships with each other. Because as we're seeing in the wars playing out around the world, control and power become more important than life, than harmony, than balance, than compassion and care for each other. This full moon is calling us back into compassion in how we work with ourselves emotionally, Sun in Cancer, and our thoughts, Mercury in Cancer, to be able to, Moon in Capricorn, manifest, bring into form, take responsibility for the choices that we're making, to be establishing these new forms and systems and structures in our world that are more healing. Jupiter's also trining the full moon. And again, that Jupiter movement through Taurus and the North Node in Taurus are supporting us in having faith and trust in these new forms that we can move into and manifest. And Taurus is about our connection with the earth and about how we value the earth's resources. But I think it's also guiding us to look at what are our values? What are these forms and structures we're establishing in our social systems, in our interactions with each other? And are they coming from a place of compassion, being in right relationship with each other and the earth? Or are they coming out of those old paradigms of power over, control, domination, destruction? Let's look at where the full moon is in the sky. At the time of this full moon, the sun will be actually in the stars of Gemini. The sun and Mercury and Juno will be right here in the stars of Gemini between the twins, Castor and Pollux. And remember the meaning of these stars, which gives us a deeper archetypal understanding of the meaning of this full moon, are about how are we integrating those energies within us of light and dark. Remember, Castor and Pollux were the two twins. One was mortal, one was immortal. One carried the energy of light, one of dark. So how are we integrating those polarities within us and holding ourselves with compassion and honoring our wholeness? The moon at the time of this full moon is actually in the sky in the stars of Sagittarius, the Archer. Here's the image of the Archer. You can see it's the Centaur holding the bow and arrow, with the arrow, the tip of the arrow pointing to our view of the galactic center. So at the deepest level, Sagittarius is about how are we honoring that we're on a spiritual journey here on the earth? How do we keep our gaze, our attention focused on source, galactic center, and allow that to guide us in how we are living our lives? The moon, full moon, is actually right in the constellation at that place where the Archer is holding that arrow pointing at the galactic center. So we're being guided with this full moon to keep our focus on source, to remember that we are soul selves having a human experience. So how are we manifesting in our actions, in the things that we're structuring in our lives in a way that are in that right harmonic with Source? Then, and I think this is absolutely exquisite, when we look at where the Mars-Venus conjunction is taking place in the sky, it's right close to the royal star Regulus, the heart of Leo the lion. So we're meant to be in relationship with each other, to come into this balance of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, to be working with these energies of Mars and Venus in how we're in relationship within ourselves, how we're in relationship with each other, and in a way that is coming from the heart, Regulus, and coming from a place of courage and wanting to be in right relationship with each other. So this full moon is supporting us in how to be putting into form in our lives these new paradigms that are about being in right relationship with each other, being in right relationship with the earth. And there's a deeper layer of meaning to this full moon that I want to talk with you about as we are pulling in the energies of the Kuiper belt objects and some of these newly discovered dwarf planets that are bringing into our collective consciousness aspects of ourselves that we're meant to face in this time. As we integrate into the chart some of the centaurs, those are those planetary bodies like Chiron, Nessus, Pholus, Chariklo, that have orbits that are between Jupiter and Neptune. And then further out, we have the Kuiper belt objects that orbit out closer beyond Neptune and between the orbits of Neptune and Pluto, or some of them beyond Pluto. These objects are coming into our collective consciousness in this time because we need their wisdom, that they are guiding us in what we need to be aware of in our collective consciousness, to be in this time of evolution, to be continuing to face and what we need to see in ourselves and grow and evolve in our spiritual journeys individually and collectively on the planet. Remember, the energies of the centaurs are about how are we healing what needs to be healed within us. Chiron is that point in our charts that is about where do we carry unresolved wounds and how do we work the healing of that. Chariklo is where we hold that energy of love and compassion, that capacity to be present with and for each other in a healing way. Nessus and Pholus are other centaurs that are about how do we heal ancestral trauma? How do we heal imbalances in power or abuse of power or experiences of powerlessness? So the centaurs guide us in our healing journeys. The Kuiper belt objects, which I want to be exploring more fully in upcoming videos and interviews with other people, are guiding us in what other aspects of our consciousness are we needing to expand into and explore more fully as we're in this profound transition time. I think it's significant that some of these Kuiper belt objects that have been discovered in recent years are named after indigenous gods or goddesses that relate to creation deities. They're reminding us of our origins and how to be back in right relationship with the natural world. They're pulling on that indigenous understanding that everything is interconnected, everything is conscious, that we are a part of the oneness of all of life. But there are other Kuiper belt objects that speak to what we need to face in our collective unconscious, some of those shadow aspects of ourselves that we need to face and bring into awareness in order to be on this path of healing and transformation. But let me show you a few of them that are very significant in the time of this full moon. What you see here conjunct the full moon is Quaoar, one of the Kuiper belt objects at 7 degrees of Capricorn, Pholus, one of the centaurs at 7 degrees of Capricorn, and Ixion, a Kuiper belt object at 3 degrees of Capricorn. It's highly significant that all of these are conjunct this full moon. And what does that mean? What are these planetary bodies speaking to? What are they guiding us to bring into our awareness? So as we look at this combination of Quaoar, Pholus, Ixion, what's amazing is Ixion was discovered in 2001 and was in the sign of Sagittarius. Quaoar was discovered in 2002, conjunct Ixion in the sign of Sagittarius. Then they have stayed in a 5-degree orb conjunction with each other up through the present, and Pholus moved into conjunction with the other two in 2008, all three then being in Sagittarius. Interestingly enough, they all were conjunct in Capricorn beginning in 2021 and will continue in conjunction with each other as they all end up conjunct in Aquarius by 2042, and then they'll begin to separate from each other. But what's amazing is in this time frame from the discovery of Ixion and then Quaoar, we have been seeing the two of them in a conjunction together, and then Pholus coming into play in 2008 as Pluto moved into Capricorn. So I think these three are profound in how they're guiding us in this transition time that we're in. And think of the meaning of that in terms of our collective consciousness. Ixion, the Kuiper belt object, was discovered in 2001 and has an orbit of 250 years. Quaoar, that Kuiper belt object, was discovered in 2002 and has an orbit of 286 years. So they're going to be moving in connection with each other for many years. Pholus was discovered in 1992 and has an orbit of 92 years. So it's moved into conjunction with the other two and then will be moving off by after 2042. But here is this prolonged period of time from 2008 to through 2042, where these three are in a dance together, in movement together. First, we have Quaoar, which is a very interesting Kuiper belt object named after a creation deity of the Tongva people that were an indigenous tribe dating back 7,000 years in the area of Southern California near the Los Angeles basin. This tribe had a strong belief that humans are not the apex of creation. They are one strand in the web of life. So their deity, creation deity, Quaoar, was the creation deity that did a dance, spinning dance, bringing order out of chaos to bring life into being, including all of the life on the earth and humanity. So as we connect with the energy of Quaoar conjunct the full moon, we're being guided to tap into that ancient indigenous understanding that we are but one strand on the web of life, on this planet and in our universe. Next to Quaoar is the Centaur Pholus, that, as Melanie Reinhardt would say, the core meaning of Pholus is the lid comes off. In other words, without going into all of the mythology of Pholus in Greek mythology, this is the centaur that is supporting us in looking at what ancestral healing we need to do. What are the wounds that have been carried across generations that we're needing to heal. So I think it's significant that Quaoar is guiding us back into this more ancient wisdom and understanding of how we can be in right relationship with each other and the earth. And Pholus is saying, heal that. Heal the ancestral wounds that have led us into this time of imbalance. On the other side of Pholus is the Kuiper Belt object, Ixion. Ixion, I find a very fascinating planetary body because its meaning is coming out of Greek mythology, and it is one of the darkest myths in Greek mythology. Let me tell you a little bit of the story of Ixion. Ixion was the king of Lapiths, an area in northern Greece, and he was known for his hubris, his arrogance. When he married, instead of honoring the family obligation and relationships that were expected in his culture to give a gift to the father, a bride price, he ignored that. The father of the bride, in anger, then stole some of Ixion's horses. Ixion, in his rage, decided to retaliate. He creates a feast for the father-in-law. And when the father-in-law arrives for the feast, Ixion is laid a trap so that the father-in-law falls into a charcoal pit and is burned to death. Because this was such a violation of the Greek honoring of right relationships with kinship, with how we host guests, how we are in right relationship with each other, he became an outcast. But at some point, Zeus has pity on him and invites him to Mount Olympus. Ixion, continuing to not take responsibility for his actions or feel any remorse for what he's done, now lusts after Hera, the wife of Zeus, and is trying to have a relationship with her. Zeus, upset with this, creates a cloud being that looks like Hera. Ixion makes love with what he thinks is Hera and is actually Nephele, who is a cloud nymph, and they give birth to Centaurus, a centaur. In punishment for what he's done, Ixion is banished from Olympus, and Hermes later puts him on a spinning fiery wheel for all eternity, so that he is endlessly punished for his arrogance and his inability to take responsibility for his actions, his staying on a path of destruction, of violating relationships with others. This is a very dark tale. And as I struggled with trying to understand how do we connect with the meaning of that in our charts, I think the deeper meaning of it is, where can we get caught in patterns that we may not be fully conscious of, that are leading us in a path of disconnection from each other and a path of destruction? So I encourage you to look at where Ixion is in your birth chart. You can find that through going to astro.com. Look at where you may be vulnerable to getting caught in compulsive patterns of ways in which you're acting in relationship to yourself and others that are destructive and that are about disconnection, that are about violation, that are about operating out of greed or revenge or lust. There are ways in which we get caught in those passions and those impulses of the ego in a way that we're letting that take control, and we're not operating from a deeper centered sense of ourselves or connection with our soul self. To me, Ixion is giving us the symbol of the shadow side of patriarchy at its worst, where we are caught in this sense of disconnection from each other. And what becomes important is my ego my arrogance, my hubris. How am I in control? How do I get what I want in my life without caring about how it's impacting others? And it ultimately leads to Ixion's own destruction and his inability to be forgiven because he continually refuses to have any remorse or make any amends or take responsibility for his choices. So it's interesting at the time of this full moon that Ixion is conjunct Pholus, is conjunct Quaoar, and conjunct the moon. I do believe that part of what we're having to face collectively is how we've gotten caught in these shadow aspects of the patriarchal paradigm. We need to heal and change those paradigms in order to move into the Aquarian age. We're needing to remember that indigenous wisdom, that we are one strand, a part of the web of life, that we need to come back into a place of humility and a place of honoring our interdependence and interconnectedness with each other and with all of life. Pholus is supporting us in healing these ancestral patterns that have been so out of balance, and the ways in which collectively we're caught in some of that dynamic of Ixion that is driven by the ego, by impulse, by a desire for power, for wealth, to pursue what I want, no matter how it impacts anyone else. So I think part of what we're needing to look at the time of this full moon is, where are we caught in compulsive patterns from the past that we need to change? I really encourage you to look at where this full moon lands in your chart, because that's the area in which anything within 3 to 7 degrees of Capricorn, where these points, these planetary objects lie, is where you may be needing to face certain patterns in your life that you're caught in, compulsive behaviors, ways that you're operating out of fear or out of a survival modality, rather than coming from your deeper, authentic self, being aligned with your soul self. So look at where that lands in your chart. And what I find interesting is it may land on a point, it may land on Venus, or it may land on your moon. It may land on something that is about how are you in relationship, or how are you dealing with your own emotions. Look at ways that you may be getting caught either in arrogance or fear that is motivating you to act in compulsive ways that are coming from this survival mode, or coming from ego, or coming from arrogance. We are being guided in this full moon time to continue in that healing journey, to be able to bring these things into consciousness that we need to clear and change and heal individually and collectively in order to move into these new forms of the Aquarian age. So I think it's important to face the shadow aspects of ourselves and see where we may be getting caught in those dynamics of Ixion. However, I don't think you're watching this video if you're caught in that archetypal energy. I have been so moved by the consciousness of those in this community who are working their process in a profound way and being supportive of each other as we work to be agents of healing and transformation in the world in this time. So more to the point of what I think those of us in this community need to be aware of is, how do we embody the energies of Pholus, healing these ancestral patterns, healing them in our own lives so that we can heal these lineage patterns in the collective? How do we take a stand with those who are emanating the Ixion energy in our world and say, enough is enough? We've seen, particularly intensely in the last few years, the profound way that there have been authoritarian leaders and wealthy elite people seeking power and control and dominance, no matter what the cost, in terms of the loss of life, in terms of impact on our communities, in terms of impact on our earth. So how do we take a stand and say enough is enough, and be that healing presence of Pholus, taking the lid off and showing the reality of what we're dealing with in this transition time? But even more than that, I think we're called to embody and emanate that energy of Quaoar. Quaoar was this creation deity who, as I was saying earlier, spun order out of chaos. Quaoar, the deity for the Tongva people, was not affiliated with either the male identity or the female identity. Quaoar held both and sang a song of creation and did a dance to sing and dance life into being, to sing and dance order from chaos. First, Quaoar sang Father Sky into being, and then Mother Earth. And as they were created, they joined in the song with Quaoar. And Quaoar then began to sing into being the sun, the moon, the mountains, the rivers, the plants, the animals, the humans. And as each was created, they joined in the dance, joined in harmony with Quaoar to sing this dance of creation, of joy, of life, of interconnectedness, of order rising out of chaos. How do we emanate that energy of Quaoar in these times? We do have these Ixion energies at work on the planet, but we can be the healing energy of Pholus, and we can be the creation energy of Quaoar, singing together, singing in harmony together, calling the world into order, creating new ways of being, new life, allowing that to be the dominant song and dance of the planet, not the cacophony or the destructive energy of Ixion, who doesn't know how to be in harmony with anyone or anything. We don't have to fight the Ixions on the planet. We can just take a stand and not comply, not give our power away, not allow them to take control of our lives and of the earth. We together can sing the song of creation, of new ways of being, of harmony, of community, of compassion, of healing, of order arising out of chaos. May we find that song in our hearts. May we sing that song together. May we, like Quaoar, find that joy of life, of magic, of creation, of interconnectedness, of remembering that we are just one strand in the web of life. And sing that song with the stars, with the sun, with the moon and planets, with all the plants and animals and creatures of the earth, and come back into harmony. Let us sing that song of life and love and creation and unity together as we form this new world together. Blessed be.